Hello ladies, welcome to Homemakers Radio. I hope you get a few things done while you listen today. Before you go, I would like to share my tea mug with you. It's more delicate than the big, heavy, thick coffee mugs, and it's for drinking tea. I got it at Home Goods, and it's for busy homemakers, I think, who need to take maybe a hot drink with them from job to job, and it prevents a lot of tipping that the normal teacup saucer combination might have. Very easy to knock those over sometimes, and not everyone that comes here wants to drink out of a teacup and saucer. They tend to think this is a little more stable and enjoy drinking out of these, so I'm very happy to show this to you. I got it at Home Goods the last time we were let out. So today I want everyone to get ready if they possibly can, and please do your best. Spend a little time on yourself. I think that it prevents lethargy. If you are feeling lethargic, that might be one of the things. You know, if I was your coach, I would give you some assignments, and I would tell you to get ready, and then you'd have to contact me when you were finished getting dressed with a picture. Or if I were going, and if I had a clientele and I were going around to my different people, to my constituents, I would have a little file on each one of you, and I would check off to see if you had done it. And you would have to greet me at the door fully dressed and well presented. And so then the next thing you want to do is get yourself a little list ready. Sometimes it helps to write it down, even though we know mentally, many of us who are elderly still need to write things down, not because we're going to forget, but somehow it solidifies more in our minds when we write it down. So lists are really important. And I like to choose aprons that have pockets in them, and I like one pocket to have my notebook and a pen in it to write down things as I think of them, just different things. And then the other pocket I can use for little odds and ends that I pick up, a little nail here and a paper clip there. And also I put keys in there because often I have to go to different places that need keys around this area, around my home. And so that's nice to have two pockets. So today I labeled this prayer in the home because I had thought about when I was getting ready to retire yesterday, I need to list everybody that I need to pray for. And of course I know I suggest you always at least spend a lot of time on your own family, your own relatives, because no one else is going to do that. There are probably millions of people praying for famous people or praying for presidents and prime ministers, and that's nice. They should be included. But it occurred to me as I was retiring that my mind wasn't as keen on it as it was when I was washing dishes. And this is the best time to pray, when you're washing dishes, because that's when you start thinking of these people. There's something about the hands cleaning the kitchen that engages the mind. And you will agree with me, I think, that you think of a lot of things. That's one reason I keep that list in my pocket. But when you're washing dishes, you're thinking about these people and you're thinking about things. And that's when you need to pray. So pray when you think about it. That's the best time. We don't have to be folding our hands and bowing our heads and closing our eyes all the time for prayer. And you can pray as you go. And so these are things we need to think about and to pray for your loved ones, because I understand there are a lot of people in a very terrible shock. This is what we're seeing around us, is in this war. That's another thing, is pray that God will relieve us from this war. And we're trying not to mention it amongst ourselves at home because we don't want to ruin the atmosphere. But I will mention it and say that what we're finding out is it weakens people. War is not necessarily good for people, and persecution is not necessarily good for people. There are some people that just glory in it, and they just want everyone to be a martyr, and they just think it's a glorious thing. remember in Sense and Sensibility, and Marianne was reading all these tragedies, and she said, "To die for love, what could be more glorious?" Well, some people feel that way about becoming sacrificial for everything, and the thing is, what we're finding out is that it weakens people. So we really don't wish it on anyone. We don't wish war on anyone. We don't wish hardship on anyone because it can weaken some. Some aren't going to survive it spiritually. And one example is you'll know somebody who, for all intents and purposes, seems to be almost a fanatical health nut. Just everything is super organic. They're very careful what they put into their bodies. They don't take drugs. They wouldn't even take an aspirin. And then in this pressure that's going on from the chemical companies that are trying to impose chemicals on us and injections, these people weaken. And people that you just wouldn't have ever guessed become frightened and lose all sense of good judgment. And then once they take the poison, they become belligerent and they become defiant. And they also become pushy and judgmental. And also, I'm trying to think what else I've noticed about them is that they don't want to, they lose their desire to learn. They lose their curiosity. They're happy right there where they're stuck. And I'm just wondering sometimes if the chemicals that are put in people's body stultify their brain in some way. It does concern me, and I've heard of people whose very families that live with them. They're growing children that are of age, and their other people in their families, their parents and stuff, are all taking these injections, and they're having reactions that are beyond. They also are getting sick. So this is a concern. So this war, I want everyone to pray diligently and throughout the day about this war, that God would have give us some relief and have mercy on us, and that the truth, people would listen to the truth about what's going on and protect themselves. So now I want to talk about homemaking just a little bit, because it's very important. You know, we all get busy. We have our list. We want to do things, and we become impatient. It's easy to become impatient with people that have needs, or your children. And there are some that believe, you just tell the children, no, I'm not going to help you with anything because right now I'm doing such and such. That's admirable, but we have to learn what times, how to adjust to the most urgent need, and then go on afterwards without becoming too upset. Go on and then continue what we were doing. And so, to meet the most urgent need and then go on and continue. Don't give up, because there's no use saying the reason that everything is so disorganized and there's nothing to eat and there's nothing to eat off of and there's nowhere to sit is because I was interrupted and this happened and that happened. It might take a few days to get organized, but it's best to meet the needs that were urgent at the time. Another thing that I discovered recently, and not everyone is the same, is to learn what times are your best. You can start getting pretty discouraged after, let's say, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And for many of us farmer people, we get up at unearthly hours, and by 2 o'clock we've been awake for a long time, and by 2 o'clock we may start to feel the heaviness of responsibilities of the day, and maybe the awareness that we didn't accomplish what we wanted to, and it can almost bring us to tears and make us feel extremely discouraged. But we might observe that there are certain times of the day after waking in which we feel most exuberant, most excited about life, most enthusiastic. And those, if you'll take note of those days that you are the most creative and the most productive and the most accomplished, then, and learn to capitalize on those. Even artists and writers know about this. special time of the day that they do their best work, that they do their best thinking. And so I think a homemaker needs to learn what time. And I've shown you this book. I call it a smash book, where you stick your notes in it and everything else you do in it. And even have a page for creative ideas, things that you'd like to do. And learn what times are your best. And Mr. S keeps a notebook beside the bed, because if he wakes up in the night and he's had an idea, he likes to have that handy so he can write it down, or he had a thought, or he's putting together some kind of teaching. He'll think of something and want to write it down. And I was watching someone's video. I can't think of what her name was, but she wanted to do a tour of her little apartment. And she was talking about how her bedroom was she was a widow, and her bedroom was so important to her because that's where she rejuvenates. And she said right over there she pointed to her diary, her journal that was sitting there, and how important that was, because it made her gather her thoughts again. And so I wanted to mention too that you should never put your life on hold when confronted with trouble. Those of you who have noticed that relatives and friends of the family and your very close friends are starting to buckle under the pressure to take some of these so-called remedies without investigating them, without knowing what the ingredients are. And it can be very distressing if you know the truth and if you're trying to tell them. And you can get online and find, I think they're called detox for, and mention what it was they took. And you can find really interesting by herbalists and by qualified health practitioners, and even doctors and nurses that can help and give you training and hints on what to do if you become sick, or if someone you know becomes sick from some of these ill-advised treatments. So don't put life on hold when confronted with trouble. It's very tempting to become crestfallen, sullen, and want to give up when you're met with bad news. And in a war, this is always the way it is, isn't it? But you have to live, and you have to recover from it. And something that I'm going to read to you today might be very helpful. But before I start reading, I am going to show you something that comes in the mail for me. It's Victoria Magazine. It is a very high quality magazine, and it's a place where never is heard a discouraging word. It's always upbeat, always cheerful. It always does you good. And the reason I wanted to tell you about this is last year they had a sale on it that was so good that I got about 4 friends a gift subscription, and by now should be running out. But if it's running out and you still want it, they're not running that same sale, so of course I can't get them for everyone. So what I would suggest you do is go online and get yourself a subscription for it. Now you can get it on your phone or tablet or whatever. You have to pay for it, and you can look at it on your phone. It'll download. But I prefer turning pages like in the olden days. They never disappear, or you never have to find out what happened to them, or someone pulled them off the air. So I wanted to tell you about this. You can also go to their website, and I believe it's www.victoriamag.com, and they have quite a bit of the current issue, for free online. They've got almost all the recipes, and they have a couple of the house tours, and they have some of the garden tours right there online that you could look at. But like I say, I like to sit down and leaf through this like in the olden days. It's just comforting to, I'll tell you, I saw that teapot at Home Goods the other day. It didn't cost very much either. And so I wanted to go through it a little bit and talk about why I think this is a tool for you that you must have. You know how we know we have to have our dish soap, and we have to have a nice dish towel, and we want to have the proper things we need, some rubber gloves and everything, and we want to make them as nice as possible. But I think this is a tool too, because this is so good for your mind. And if you're homeschooling, there's always something in here you can do. Like this time, this is the September issue, and they visited a place in Scotland. Now, some ladies are disturbed by beautiful pictures of houses because they think that, they can't get one like that, or they can't afford it. But what I'll do is, it makes them want things, but I don't want any more stuff to take care of. When you become elderly, you quit wanting it, because then you have to dust it, wash it, clean it, repair it, and get rid of it. So what I'll do is I'll look at something like that, and I'll think, how can I make my house look like that by planting all that foliage? And I'll just look at it very carefully, and I'll read. They often tell you what the flora is and what the greenery is. So that doesn't bother me. And this time, oh goodness, I had a friend that was getting this too. I think she might have been the one that sent this to me, that gave me the subscription. And I said, turn to page 49 and look at that. And out here in Oregon, that's a common scene. So see, we don't have to go wherever that was, because we are there. But it's has beautiful subject matter in it if you'd like to learn to paint. And it always has home interiors and gardens. And then it also has their recipes that usually go along with the theme of where they've been. And they, of course, have tea, what they call tea pairings, what kind of teas go with what kind of foods. And if I can find it, they have a cottage pie this time that's looks just lovely. And I have decided to give myself an assignment to do every single recipe in here and try to make some of the bouquets for the different corners of my dwelling. And I wish I could show you this. I'll try to get a picture of this for you, so you can see this. You could probably buy this off of the newsstand shelf, or you can go online and order a single issue. And I'd really recommend this, because if you're homeschooling, I think your children might like to read about this place. They go every year to the UK and tour around and find things to take pictures of, sample the food, and include a lot of recipes. And there it is. It's the cottage pie and a beautiful creamed soup and salad. The salads are good in the next issue. So I just would say this is a tool that you need, because it's good for the heart. It's good for you. And it's not, it's usually older, used, mismatched furniture, not something from a furniture store. And there's no advertisements in it. So I think you'll love it. And it's also keepsake. I've kept every issue since 1987, and you might want to start too, because I think they draw a lot on former issues from before. It's just a most loved magazine. And I found when I was homeschooling that if I couldn't find a book, a teacher's book, or some kind of homeschool book or Christian school book that had information in it, I leafed through some of these, and sure enough, they'd have something about that country, or that, like they'd have something about textiles, or they'd have something about making things or building things. Very interesting. So I wanted to remind you again, don't put your life on hold when confronted with trouble. Have your routine around. Routines prevent that a slump in your mind. If you have a routine, you're not going to go into apathy as much, even though you don't feel like it. Now, I got a lot of this idea from watching the elderly people when I was younger. I couldn't figure out why they weren't powered by their emotions at all. They had good emotions, but they were regulated. And they were regulated by their routines, no matter what the tragedy. Of course, a lot of these people had been through the Depression and through the war, and no matter what the latest crazy thing that was going on in the media, they get up, they wash themselves, get themselves dressed, and just took great delight in fixing a nice breakfast or a cup of tea or coffee, and they would watch the sunrise, and then they would write a letter, them talking about the women, and then they would put a load of laundry in their washing machine, and then they would take it out and hang it out. And these routines kept their minds balanced. But sometimes you can get hit with an onslaught of really disappointing news, such as, like I said, friends that you've known for years that were highly healthful, and then they succumbed to the fear and took the whatever it was, and then became very ill. And you can be so shocked that you can hardly move, but you've got to get on with your life, and you have to stay vital. You have to stay vibrant, because we're going to be the generation, you're going to be the generation that's going to guide these people out of this younger generation out of this. I used to think when people got to be 40 or 50, they would overcome their following the crowd and being socially addicted to what other people said. Mostly they would think about what their parents did and not what other people wanted them to do. But we're finding that the older people are weak too. So we who are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak, just like I said last time. So learn what times are your best in homemaking, and the best time to pray is when you're doing dishes, and adjust to the most urgent need. Don't put your life on hold when confronted with trouble. Now, I want to be sure and tell you some more things that I've been listening to that have been very helpful. So I'm going to read to you today again out of, and I think there's a boys' book that's similar to Beautiful Girlhood that helps young men learn how to think. And I believe it might have been a book called, it's on the tip of my tongue. And we had, it was a great thing, a great big book full of character stories of people. So this is called The Quiet Hour, and I will comment on it, so there'll be commentation on it. So as I read it, I will comment. The Quiet Hour. This is for girls, but ladies, we're girls too, and it wouldn't hurt for you to read this book and to give it an assignment. Like I made myself an assignment to do the recipes in this one this time. I might leave out, I wanted to say something about that. They might have a peculiar ingredient that I wouldn't want or can't get, but I'll do the best I can with what I have. And most of the recipes in Victoria magazine are with ordinary ingredients. It's just that it's an interesting way that they put it together. And so I'm going to read The Quiet Hour, and I wish that you would. Now, a lot of this book, in my opinion, it was too scoldy. It's like if I were a young girl and I were reading it, I would just feel like I was being bossed and scolded and criticized in a lot of the chapters. So you have to be very discerning about this. I mean, you ladies are capable. You could probably write a chapter yourself, put it in your notebook to help young girls know how valued they are and how very, very special they are. And boys too. You could write pretty good. But this was written originally in the 1800s. They had a different way. They were quite strict people, and they had a different way of saying things that might be taken wrong today, which probably didn't mean it that way in their time. And this was rewritten, revised by Karen Andriola. But I think you can get copies of the original. Anyway, The Quiet Hour, and they use the scripture from the Psalms: meditate within your heart on your bed and be still. And that just means be quieted, being untroubled. Have you learned the value of a quiet hour? I have to stop and commentate on that. The quiet hour, it wasn't exactly, an hour, but it was a figure of speech, just, a time, a little time. Have you learned the value of a quiet hour? It may not be an hour literally of 60 minutes, but it is a season away from the rush and the whirl of the day, when you may get your bearings and know where you are. Now, who of us wouldn't benefit from that? This isn't just for young girls. This is for you and me too. In fact, when I finish reading, I think you're going to want to go and sit for 5 minutes, and also to take a walk before you retire at night and close up all your doors while it's still light, on purpose. Do those things on purpose. These are part of the rituals of the old times. People talk about how they were born too late, or they shouldn't have been born in this era. They should have been born in another. But these people had the rushed life too. You have to make the kind of life that you want, no matter what era you're in, because God put you in that era for a reason, for a purpose. But it is a season away from the rush and whirl of the day, where you may get your bearings and know where you are. We live in an age when everyone is in a hurry. Now, this is phenomenal, because this is from the 1800s. I told you last time they for hundreds of years had a slower way of life, and then their generation saw the rise of the Industrial Revolution and the manufacturing and the car and the airplane, and everything was just buzzing around them. Things were so busy. So we live in an age when everyone is in a hurry, and the young girl does not escape the rush. From morning till night, week in and week out, her hands are full of work and play. Even if you are living the slow life, you'll notice that children never tire, and they're busy all the time, and we have to train them how to have a pleasant, quiet time. And it isn't accomplished by saying, okay, you have to take a nap, and then they cry, and even the older ones, they don't want to take a nap. But if you present this in the right way, everyone will want that ceremony of the quiet hour as much as they like the ceremony of afternoon tea. But you'll have to practice it yourself first. From morning to night, week in and week out, her hands are full of work and play. If she is an ordinarily energetic girl, practically every moment will be taken up with something to do, somewhere to go, or someone to see. Well, we see that even with the homeschool families that are not rushing around to different things, that they still have quite a busy life. When we work too long or too hard, our bodies become weary. When we think or study or read too much, our minds become tired. And when things do not go right, and all our efforts will not pull them straight, our spirits get worn. For all these wearinesses, the quiet hour is a blessed balm. See, there's your cure for nervousness and agitation and worry and just feeling unsettled. If the body is tired, to step aside to a quiet place and find a comfortable chair or couch to stretch out on and relax to the very toes and fingertips, and there to lie till the tangled nerves straighten. Simply resting, will bring back vigor and strength again. If you've ever been to a physical therapist, that's one of the things that they do. If you've had an injury or you're doing some kind of physical exercises and stretches, they teach you how to relax from your toes to your fingertips. But it's nothing new. To relax just as an infant relaxes to rest, and remain but 10 minutes, will refresh the body more than half an hour or more of sitting in a chair or lying curled up on a couch. Learn to relax if you would rest. A good quiet piece of classical music can do wonders to soothe your soul. I got myself a little gadget, I guess you would call it, that when you press a button, it's battery operated, and when you press a button, it can play the ocean or it can play the rain, and that to me is soothing. Now, maybe not to everyone. Everyone's hearing is different. Some people are hearing is very sensitive. They don't like that kind of noise, but these are just some things that are available to us. Or go outside and listen. When the mind is tired, let the books or problems be put aside and go to the quiet room, or better still, into the great outdoors, and there think only of those things that are pleasant and in tune with quiet and peaceful surroundings of God's creation. Now, I've known some very wise parents who, when their children were little and the child was getting confused, starting to react, starting to not think straight, being irritable, they would say, I think I'd like you to go sit on your bed for a while and just think about all this, okay? Just think for a while. That's very wise. Don't you wish somebody would tell that to us? Soon the fogginess of mind will disappear. Well, the big thing now is brain fog. Soon the fogginess of mind will disappear and give place to clear, active thinking, and you will be rested. Well, yes, moderns always talk about brain fog and how to get clarity, and rest is certainly the answer. But the quiet hour is best for the wearied spirit. A girl gets into this spirit-weary condition more often than some suppose. Plans are broken or frustrated. Work that is unpleasant and entirely undesirable has to be done. Misunderstandings come between her and her mother and others in the family. She is reproved or rebuked. There are many things to set a girl crosswise with the world around her, and if a girl is trying to do right and is endeavoring to follow Christ in her daily life, she will look with alarm at the surging thoughts and feelings that seem to overwhelm her. Possibly, in the pressure of vexations, she has spoken harshly, and that adds to her agitation. It is now that a little season of quietness will do her good. Let her get away from everyone, if possible, and the door shut so that she is entirely alone, and then have a sober talk with herself. Let her rest her body a bit if she needs it, and quiet her thoughts. There will be something in this very quietness that will soothe her ruffled spirits. And as soon as she is quieted, let her pray and then think quietly and soberly. Though everything seems in a turmoil at first, soon it will begin to calm in accord with her own spirit, and order will come out of chaos. A wise mother will, if possible, provide opportunities for her children to be alone, so that each one will learn how to fall back upon himself for counsel and entertainment. You know, that was really important when we were growing up, that we learned to entertain ourselves. We learned to be quiet. And what we're discovering today is social addiction, and that is from the time a child is very young, they're put in groups, so that groups of other children or people, so that it's rare that they have any time alone to entertain themselves or to think. And so that when people get away from groups and have to be alone, they almost panic with this horrible feeling of isolation, which is kind of like a withdrawal from a drug. It's just awful, and furiously start searching around for someone to communicate with. And this is really not restful. If little people, when they get all worked up and out of humor, were more often sent away to think it out by themselves, many a hard time could be passed smoothly. But now the girl has come to older years. Let her learn to be wise and have her quiet hour. You know, it should be a routine, a ritual, just like a beauty treatment, to have a quiet hour. You could even call it your beauty treatment, just like I call exercise mood lifters. Those who would keep their spirits in rest and quietness should not wait till driven to seek rest and quiet from every vexation of spirit, but should make a practice of going aside a portion of every day for meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Now, those of you who have tried to do that have noticed that when you decide you don't have time for it and you skip it, then you get more troubles upon you that vex you a lot. And so as we go through here, I will comment on some of it. Prayer is more than the saying of words with the body in a certain position. It is talking with God, telling Him of your joys and hopes and desires, and receiving back His answer to your own heart, making you know the things that please Him. To meditate is to dwell in thought on any subject. The Christian gains much by meditating on the will and word of God. Prayer and meditation go hand in hand. Now, you all know, because you're older, and some of you young ones know how to do that. Meditate means you might take a verse and dwell on one of the words, and then dwell on another one of the words, and then put them all together, and then rearrange the thoughts and just dwell on it, and just write it and think about it, and sift it out and get the most out of it that you possibly can. Like juicing berries, squeezing out the juice. Let me describe a quiet hour of mine that shines out from my girlhood with brightness as I am now writing. It was at the end of a busy day. I was never strong, and the day's work had made me tired, and its perplexities and annoyances had harassed me, so that I came to my quiet hour with a spirit somewhat troubled. See, this would be great training for girls who had younger brothers and sisters. I'm the eldest of 7, and I can remember by the time I was 9, I was so aggravated. There was never a quiet moment. There was never anything that was safe. Anything that I owned was always broken or used or taken, and it was very hard to keep my temper. I was never strong, and the day's work had made me tired, and its perplexities and annoyances had harassed me, so that I came to my quiet hour with a spirit somewhat troubled. I sat on the doorstep with the clear, starlit heavens above me. As I looked up into the night, my thoughts were something like this: what a beautiful night! It is so calm and clear and quiet, and the stars shine so brightly. God, who is my Father, made those stars, and He made me. He is the creator of all things. I was lost in wonder as I thought of the greatness of His creation. And I looked at the great distance to the nearest stars, and like a flash of light came the verse of Scripture: As the heaven is high above the earth, so great is His mercy toward them that fear Him. Now, we looked up this word fear in the original languages, and it didn't mean frightened. It meant respect. When you respect God, you respect His will and you try to do it. The thought almost overwhelmed me for a moment. I knew I feared the Lord, and so His mercy to me was great. Now, isn't that interesting, this contrast in this verse? As the heaven is high above the earth, so great is His mercy towards them that fear Him. Isn't that lovely? My very soul seemed in awe at the thought. I felt so safe, so calm, so quiet and rested. Then together my Lord and I, that the day was reviewed, my thoughts went back to a place where I had spoken hastily, and I felt reproved and sorry for it. And I said, Lord, I will be more careful tomorrow. This reminds me of when in Wives and Daughters, when Mr. Gibson went to see Hyacinth to propose to her and to arrange to get married, and Molly was sent to work for the Hamleys for a little while and help Mrs. Hamley because she was feeble. And so Molly was sitting out on what we would call a little park bench, and Mr. Gibson came and saw her. She was asleep or something, and he woke her up, and she was so glad to see him. And he said, "I have news for you. I'm getting married." She was so shocked the way she responded. Hasty, sharp reply. She said, "So this is why I was sent away. So all this could be arranged in my absence." She was so upset to have been left out and for him to be getting married. And it was such an adjustment because she had been with him, I guess, all of her life, and she was 17 now. So it was quite a shock, and she responded so hastily that he was shocked, and he clamped down hard on his mouth, and he just turned around and walked away from her. And that broke her heart, so she was wailing and weeping and laying across the back of this park bench. And this is where Roger found her. And he said, "Miss Gibson, you're upset. Would you like to tell me what's wrong?" And she says, "No, I'll be all right." And she said, "I spoke so harshly to Papa, and he said, and you're sorry for it." She said here in this book, "My thoughts went back to a place where I had spoken hastily, and I was sorry for it." And he said, "And you're sorry for it." She said, "Lord, I will try to do better next time." And so we went over the whole day together. It was time for our family worship, and I rose and went in, and my spirit rested, and my soul as calm as the summer night. I have found that these quiet hours with God, these times when I have come, as it were, into His presence, have been the strength of my Christian life, and I know they are what every young Christian needs. For as Milton said, solitude is sometimes best society, and short retirement urges sweet return. Have some time each day to go aside to meditate and pray. Learn to love to be alone, to know how to depend upon yourself for entertainment, and to find in your heart and mind something to think about and meditate upon. Do not allow yourself to be the one of those light-minded creatures who must always have the stimulating effect of a companion to find enjoyment. Let me read that to you again, because this is what we're suffering from today, is over-socialization and addiction to social life. Do not allow yourself to be one of those light-minded, we would call them shallow today, creatures who must always have the stimulating effect of a companion to find enjoyment. I think this is such a worthy chapter. And a little poem was included here. There is a pleasure in the pathless woods. There is rapture on the lonely shore. There is society where none intrudes, by sea and music in its roar. Now, I also want to talk to you about a couple of things here. Remember what I said, don't put life on hold when confronted with trouble. You have to have things to do in your home that make you feel that you're making progress, and you have to have projects that go on. I know a lot of ladies find a joy in sewing or making something and taking care of their loved ones and sending things in the mail and writing. And so I want to read to you from Hebrews chapter 10, verses 39. This is really interesting because of the atmosphere that we're living in now, where even if you're trying to avoid an addiction to the media, you are going to hear it. Someone's going to tell you. But we are not of those who shrink back and are destroyed, but of those who have faith and preserve their souls. Now look at this little contrast. It's similar to the verse that I read to you out of that book, where it says, as high as the heavens. That's how much God's mercy is to us. Look at the little contrast. But we are not of those who shrink back and are destroyed. We shouldn't be destroyed by anything, but of those who have faith and preserve their souls. Your soul will be preserved if you will not shrink back and let yourself be destroyed, especially mentally. You know, the mind is the thing that people who want to destroy you are going to work on, and that they can... I believe there was a famous general who said something like that. Destroy your enemy without fighting, without bloodshed. if you can make them depressed, if you can make them discouraged, if you can make them lose heart and lose hope, then you've had a battle. You've won them. You've taken over them without bloodshed, and even without a battle. Now, I have discovered a couple more things that I like to listen to while I work, and they're mainly these people that put on a kind of an ambiance sounds with music and coffee pouring, and they'll have a campfire, and I can't think of what the names are right now, and I didn't write it down. But you might want to go look those up, nature, sounds of nature. And also sometimes they have somebody will post something inside of the sound of a cabin, of the noises that go on inside of a cabin in the woods. That's the kind of thing I listen to, and I get a lot of mileage out of it and get a lot of work done while I'm doing it. So prayer in the home. This is a wonderful sanctuary for prayer. And pray in every room that you're in, and use it as a place for freedom of expression and prayer. And today I would like to give you an assignment, ladies. I'd like you to sit still on purpose for today for 5 minutes. Sit somewhere and look at something very pleasant, like, for example, something like this, or something that you like better. And then I would like for you to take a walk before bedtime, like they did in the olden days. And a lot of you aren't even as old as me, and you can attest to this, that's what people used to do. Families used to go for a walk, even if it was up and down their driveway or just around the perimeter of their house. They go for a walk before bedtime while it's still light. Don't wait till it's really, really dark. But while it's still light, that last hour of light, go for a walk. And just do that on purpose. And so those are your two, and your prayer, to pray as you go. And make sure that's part of your ritual. If I were going to be your coach, I would have a clipboard and a notebook, and I'd come and check off and make sure you had done all that. And sometimes we do need a little help, though. I'll go online and look for somebody who's got an interesting list and way of doing things at home, just to get a little bit of revival, a little bit of encouragement in it. And it's always nice. Now, at my age, it's always nice. It's like Mrs. I've forgotten Mrs. Cumley, or what was her name in Wives and Daughters, and the doctor had told her to go for a walk every day and quit eating so many this or that. And she said, so nice to have one tell one what to do for a change. She was the kind of the head of her house, and she had to manage everybody and manage everything, manage all the entertainment. And I remember she said, it's so nice to be told what one must do. And sometimes it's nice. Now, when you're younger, not so much, but I think I want to just give you those two assignments today. Sit still for 5 minutes and look at something pleasant for 5 minutes, and try to actually let everything go and focus on it. I know what it's like to be disturbed by terror and bad news. As you can go to the grocery store and look at the food, try to read the label, but you don't absorb it because your mind is whirling with all this mess. So the other thing is to go for a walk before bedtime while it's still light, and make this part of your routine, plus pray while you're washing dishes. So ladies, I hope that I have kept you busy enough that you got quite a few things done, and that you'll remember the assignment. If not, you children who are listening, you can remind your mother it's time to go outside. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.